The darkness is absolute. It is a void of human construction, a vast bowl of silence waiting for a spark. A single matchstick is struck against the abrasive strip of its box. The friction generates heat, a microscopic bloom of chemical energy that ignites the phosphorus. A tiny orange flicker dances in the centre of the pitch, casting a fragile glow that barely reaches the nearest blade of grass. It is a momentary victory over the dark, a small thing, predictable and contained. In the context of the stadium, it is a mere pinprick, a negligible event in a sea of shadow. Then the laws of the local world shatter. That single point of light does not fade, it does not flicker out. Instead, it expands with a ferocity that defies the structural integrity of the atom. In a fraction of a second, the matchstick is no longer a tool of wood and sulphur. It is the heart of a cataclysm. It erupts with the concentrated fury of 10 billion suns. The stadium does not merely burn, it ceases to exist as a physical structure, its concrete and steel sublimating into a superheated mist before the shockwave can even arrive. The surrounding city is erased, not by fire, but by a strobe of blue light so intense it strips the electrons from the very air. The atmosphere of the planet, once a protective blanket of nitrogen and oxygen, is vaporized, turned into a screaming corona of plasma that reaches for the stars. This is the transition from the mundane to the cosmic, the moment where the scale of reality breaks the human mind. This is the paradox that governs the wider universe. Our understanding of the cosmos is built upon the predictable, the rhythmic, and the measurable. We track the steady pulse of distant stars and the slow, graceful rotation of galaxies, convinced that the maps we draw are definitive. We look at the night sky and see a static tapestry, a gallery of ancient ghosts whose lives and deaths follow well-understood paths. But the dark is not empty, nor is it always quiet. It hides the black swans. In the lexicon of human knowledge, a black swan is an event that lies far beyond the realm of normal expectations, a phenomenon so rare and so massive that its mere occurrence renders every previous observation obsolete. These are the outliers that break the bell curve of reality. They are the moments when the universe stops being a clockwork machine and reveals itself as a cold, indifferent engine of transformation. In the early months of the year 2022, the eyes of humanity, cold, glass lenses perched on mountains and orbiting in the silence of the vacuum, caught a glint from the deep. At first, it appeared as nothing more than a routine flicker, a minor variation in the background radiation of a distant, nameless galaxy. We catalogued it with the dispassionate efficiency of a species that believes it has seen everything the night has to offer. We assigned it a designation, a string of letters and numbers spoken as AT 2022 CMC. We expected it to fade, to follow the well-trodden path of a dying star or a passing flare. We expected the matchstick to go out. We were wrong. The flicker did not subside. It grew with a speed that defied the models of stellar evolution. It intensified until it was 10,000 times brighter than the most violent deaths of stars ever recorded in the history of our species. This was not a standard explosion. It was a rupture in the fabric of the expected. Something in the ancient dark had woken up, and it was screaming across the vacuum in a language of pure, unadulterated radiation. The light that reached our senses was not the warm glow of a stellar hearth, but a piercing, blue-white beacon of relativistic fury. It was a signal from a distance so vast it defies the human capacity for measurement, a distance that swallows light for billions of years before allowing it to graze our atmosphere. The scale of this event, AT 2022 CMC, forces a total recalibration of our place in the cosmos. We are biological entities made of fragile carbon, occupying a sliver of time on a pebble orbiting a mundane star. We perceive the world through the narrow window of our senses, believing that the limits of our perception are the limits of reality. But the universe operates on a scale where the energy of an entire solar system, can be processed into a beam of light in a matter of weeks. The light we detected in 2022 began its journey when the universe was only a third of its current age. It has travelled through the expanding void for 8.5 billion years, carrying with it the heat of 30,000 Kelvin, twice as hot as the surface of the most massive stars known to science. When an event of this magnitude occurs, it does more than just light up a sensor. It collapses the theoretical frameworks we have spent centuries constructing. The maps we have drawn of the sky, with their neat classifications of supernovae and pulsars, are suddenly seen for what they are: sketches made by a child in the sand before the tide comes in. We are forced to reckon with the fact that our local reality is a thin veneer of calm atop an ocean of unfathomable violence. The Black Swan has arrived, and it has brought with it a light that reveals the true nature of the void. It is a scream that has travelled across the eons, a reminder that the universe is not built for our comfort or our understanding. It is a place of extremes, where the strike of a match can indeed herald the birth of 10 billion suns, and where the silence of the night is merely a mask for the screaming energy of the infinite. We stand as witnesses to this paradox, looking into the blue fire of the past, trying to find a language that can describe a reality that has outgrown our imagination. The silence of Palomar Mountain is broken only by the low hum of cooling systems and the rhythmic rotation of a massive dome. Here, the Zwicky Transient Facility, a mechanical sentinel of the Silicon Age, performs its nightly ritual. It does not sleep. It does not blink. Every 2 days, its wide-field camera swoops across the entire northern sky, slicing the darkness into high-resolution frames. It is a machine designed to find the needles in the cosmic haystack, the transients, the objects that flicker, move, or explode in a universe that otherwise appears frozen in time. In the second month of the year 2022, a routine alert triggered a cascade of data that would soon shatter the quiet of the astrophysical community. The automated pipelines, which sift through hundreds of thousands of alerts every night, flagged a source of light in a distant, nondescript galaxy. To the software, it was merely a point of increasing luminosity, a minor deviation from the baseline. But when the data reached the screens of Igor Andreoni and his team of astronomers, the routine gave way to a profound sense of disorientation. A typical supernova, the explosive death of a massive star, follows a well-understood biological rhythm. It begins with the collapse of a core, followed by a rebound that sends a shockwave through the stellar envelope. The light builds steadily over a period of many days, reaching a peak before slowly waning as the radioactive debris cools and expands into the void. It is a process governed by the laws of thermodynamics and the predictable decay of nickel-56. But the signal from AT 2022 CMC ignored these rules. The light did not build, it erupted. The curve on the astronomers' monitors showed a rise in luminosity that was almost vertical, a spike of energy that defied the physical constraints of a stellar atmosphere. Within 48 hours, the source had reached a level of brilliance that eclipsed the combined light of billions of stars. Yet, even more perplexing was its refusal to fade. While a fast-evolving supernova might peak and then plummet, this new source maintained its terrifying intensity. It glowed with a fierce blue-white light that suggested temperatures far beyond the reach of a standard stellar explosion. Andreoni and his colleagues found themselves staring at a phenomenon that occupied a vacuum in their catalogues. The sheer speed of the event suggested an engine of immense power, something capable of accelerating matter to a significant fraction of the speed of light. They cross-referenced the coordinates with existing maps of the sky, finding only a faint dormant galaxy at the centre of the coordinates. There was no history of activity here, no previous flares to suggest a volatile galactic nucleus. The event had come from nothing, a silent sentinel of the deep that had suddenly chosen to scream. As the team coordinated with other observatories around the globe, the mystery only deepened. Optical telescopes, X-ray satellites, and radio arrays were all slewed toward the coordinates in a desperate attempt to capture the spectrum of this outlier. The data that poured back confirmed the impossible. The source was 10,000 times brighter than even the most luminous supernovae. It was emitting radiation across the entire electromagnetic spectrum, from the low hum of radio waves to the high-frequency pierce of X-rays. The team realized they were not witnessing the death of a star in isolation. They were witnessing a transformation. The light was too blue, too hot, and too fast to be the result of a simple core collapse. It carried the signature of a relativistic event, a moment where the very laws of motion were being pushed to their breaking point. In the quiet offices of California, the researchers began to understand that they had caught a black swan in mid-flight. They were no longer looking at a known celestial process. They were looking at a new kind of cosmic engine, one that had remained hidden in the shadows of the universe until the second month of 2022. This was the moment the scale paradox became a tangible reality. The team was looking at a single point of light on a screen, yet that point represented an energy release so vast it could be seen from the other side of the observable universe. The data packets, translated into colourful graphs and tables, were the only evidence of a catastrophe that had unfolded 8.5 billion years ago. The realization began to sink in. The universe had just revealed a new way to die, and it was far more violent than anything they had ever recorded. The hunt for the cause was no longer a matter of routine classification. It was a journey into the heart of a gravitational monster. The architecture of human knowledge is built upon the sturdy foundation of the average. We observe the migration of birds, the flow of rivers, and the steady burning of the stars, and from these repeated patterns, we derive the laws of nature. We construct bell curves to map the probability of existence, finding comfort in the fact that most events cluster near the centre, predictable and tame. In the realm of astrophysics, this statistical safety has long been anchored by the life cycles of stars. We know how they are born in the cold cradles of molecular clouds, how they fuse hydrogen into helium for billions of years, and how they eventually succumb to the relentless pull of gravity. But the universe is not merely a collection of averages. It is a vast, dark gallery of the exceptional, governed by the logic of the black swan. A black swan is a statistical ghost, an event that exists so far on the periphery of probability that its occurrence is deemed impossible until the moment it happens. In the study of the heavens, these events are the great disruptors. They are not merely larger versions of known phenomena, they are entirely different beasts that carry a massive transformative impact on our scientific models. Before the arrival of AT 2022, CMC and its predecessor, the enigmatic 3I/Atlas, our understanding of stellar death was neatly categorized. We believed we understood the limits of how much energy a dying star could release. We relied on the Chandrasekhar limit, the critical threshold of 1.44 times the mass of our Sun, as the ultimate ceiling for the stability of a white dwarf. This limit was the boundary of our reality, the point beyond which matter could no longer support itself against the crushing weight of its own existence. When a star exceeds this limit, the result is supposed to be a supernova, a brilliant but predictable explosion that follows a known chemical and physical trajectory. However, the emergence of a new class of events known as FBOTs, or fast blue optical transients, has shattered this complacency. These are the black swans of the cosmos. They do not follow the slow radioactive decay curves of traditional supernovae. Instead, they appear with a suddenness that borders on the teleological, reaching peak luminosity in a matter of days rather than weeks. They are characterized by a searing ultraviolet heat that indicates a temperature and energy density far beyond what a standard stellar collapse should allow. 3I/Atlas was one of the first of these outliers to force a reckoning. It was an event that defied the standard light curves, glowing with a ferocity that suggested an engine of near-perfect efficiency hidden within the wreckage of a star. These FBOTs challenge the very core of the Chandrasekhar limit and our fundamental understanding of how massive stars collapse. They suggest that under certain rare conditions, the death of a star can trigger a secondary process, a hidden mechanism that converts gravitational potential energy into raw radiation with a violence that makes a standard supernova look like a flickering candle. The existence of these events forces us to ask what we have missed in our maps of the sky. If the Chandrasekhar limit is the law, then these transients are the outlaws, operating in a regime where the density of matter and the intensity of magnetic fields create a physics we are only beginning to glimpse. They represent a breakdown of the steady-state universe. In the presence of a black swan like AT 2022 ECMC, the equations we use to describe the cooling of plasma and the expansion of shockwaves begin to fail. The impact of such an event is not just found in the light it emits, but in the way it forces the scientific community to abandon old certainties. We are forced to confront the reality that the universe possesses a deep, hidden repertoire of violence. The statistical outliers are not glitches in our sensors, they are revelations of the true potential of the vacuum. When we see an event that is 10,000 times brighter than a standard stellar death, we are looking at the failure of our previous models. We are seeing the moment where the bell curve of our knowledge is torn asunder by the reality of the infinite. These transients are the messengers of a more complex, more volatile cosmos, one where the rules of the game can change in a heartbeat. They remind us that our grasp on the laws of nature is only as good as our last observation, and that in the dark of the deep there are monsters waiting to be born that we have not yet named. The study of these black swans is the study of the limits of our own intelligence, a journey into the extreme where the only certainty is the unpredictability of the flame. The protagonist of this tragedy is a sphere of incandescent plasma, a solar twin that has spent 5 billion years in a state of stable, rhythmic fusion. In its core, the pressure of 100 billion atmospheres forces hydrogen nuclei to fuse into helium, releasing a steady stream of photons that take 100,000 years to work their way from the center to the surface. It is a star of unremarkable beauty, one of 100 billion such lights in a galaxy, situated halfway across the observable universe. For eons, it has followed a long elliptical path around the galactic center, a lonely sentinel carving a furrow through the thin gases of the interstellar medium. It is a world of magnetic storms and golden flares, a self-contained engine of light that knows nothing of the shadow growing ahead. As the star drifts deeper into the galactic interior, the environment begins to change. The gaps between its neighbours shrink. The sky, if there were eyes to see it from a planet in its orbit, would be crowded with the brilliant white light of ancient giants and the blue fire of new arrivals. The star is being drawn by a subtle, relentless pull toward the very heart of the galaxy, a region where the laws of orbital mechanics are dictated by a mass so concentrated it defies the geometry of space itself. This is the territory of the dormant giant, a supermassive black hole that has not fed for 1 million years. It sits in the dark, a puncture in the fabric of reality, invisible to the eye but felt by every atom that dares to cross its threshold. The star enters the outer reaches of this gravitational well with the grace of a falling leaf. At first, there is no sign of the catastrophe to come. The fusion in its core continues unabated. The magnetic loops on its surface still dance in their intricate glowing patterns. But as it crosses an invisible boundary, the first signs of the scale paradox begin to manifest. The gravity of the black hole is not a uniform force. It is a gradient, a steepening slope where the pull on the front of the star is significantly stronger than the pull on the back. This is the tidal force, a silent, invisible hand that begins to knead the star like dough. The star, once a perfect sphere held together by its own internal gravity, begins to stretch. The outer layers of its atmosphere, the corona and the chromosphere, are the first to feel the theft. The superheated gas, which should be bound to the star, begins to leak away, drawn toward the dark centre of the galaxy in a long wispy trail of ions. The star is no longer a closed system, it is being unravelled. The gravitational shear grows more intense with every passing hour. The internal pressure of the star, which has balanced the weight of its layers for billions of years, starts to lose the struggle. The core, the very heart of the solar engine, is distorted, its spherical symmetry crushed into an oblong shape. The star is now a victim of the inverse square law, a mathematical certainty that dictates its destruction. The closer it gets to the singularity, the more violent the stretching becomes. The difference in gravitational acceleration between the leading edge of the star and its trailing edge becomes so great that it exceeds the star's own binding energy. This is the tidal disruption radius, a point of no return where the star ceases to be a coherent object. It is no longer a sun. It is a collection of gas moving at different velocities, a celestial body being turned into a stream of debris. The sense of doom is not a loud or sudden thing. It is a slow, geometric progression. The star is being stripped of its identity. The golden light that once provided warmth to the void is now being focused and distorted by the warping of space-time. The star screams not in sound, but in a surge of X-rays and ultraviolet light as its internal structures are torn apart. The convective zones, where massive plumes of plasma once rose and fell in a predictable cycle, are now chaotic rivers of fire being pulled into the abyss. The star is being processed, its 5 billion years of history being erased in a matter of days as it plummets toward the event horizon. There is a terrible beauty in this dissolution. The star, in its final moments of coherence, glows with a frantic, desperate brilliance. It is the light of a candle being squeezed by a giant, a final flare of energy before the matter is organized into something far more terrifying. The star has crossed the threshold. It has entered the domain of the monster, and the silence of the vacuum is about to be replaced by the roar of a relativistic jet. The journey that began in the quiet nurseries of a distant galaxy is ending in a strobe of blue light that will be seen across the entire span of time and space. The star is no longer a traveller, it is fuel. At the heart of this distant spiral galaxy, 8.5 billion light-years from the hills of California, sits a throne of absolute shadow. It is a supermassive black hole, a gravitational anchor around which an entire civilization of stars performs a slow, multi-million-year waltz. Yet, unlike the brilliant quasars that illuminated the early universe, this monster is silent. It is a dormant giant, a relic of a more violent epoch that has long since swept its immediate surroundings clean of gas and dust. For eons it has existed as a ghost, its presence betrayed only by the subtle, high-speed orbits of the stars that dare to skirt its outer influence. It is a puncture in the geometry of the void, a place where the laws of physics do not merely bend but shatter entirely. At the very centre of this darkness lies the singularity. It is a concept that defies the structural logic of the human brain, a point of infinite density and zero volume. Here, the mass of several million suns has been crushed into a mathematical dot, creating a gravitational field so intense that the curvature of space-time becomes infinite. This is the ultimate predator, an object that does not interact with the universe through light or heat, but through the sheer, irresistible distortion of reality. Surrounding this point is the event horizon, a spherical boundary that marks the end of the knowable world. It is not a physical surface made of matter, but a threshold of no return. Once a photon or a particle of dust crosses this invisible line, the escape velocity required to exit exceeds the speed of light, the fundamental speed limit of the cosmos. To fall toward this horizon is to leave the stream of time as we understand it, as the immense gravity stretches seconds into centuries for any distant observer. For millions of years, this black hole has known only the cold hunger of the vacuum. It is a cosmic engine that has been switched off, its fuel lines empty, its gears frozen in the stillness of the deep. In this state of dormancy, the black hole is nearly invisible, a blind spot in the tapestry of the night. It does not emit radiation. It does not flare with X-rays. It simply waits, a silent sentinel at the bottom of a gravitational well that spans light years. The stars that orbit it at a safe distance are like moths circling a cold lamp, unaware that the lamp is capable of igniting with the fury of a billion suns, if only a single drop of oil should fall into its wick. The arrival of the solar twin changes everything. As the star plummets toward the galactic centre, the dormant giant begins to exert its influence. This is not a sudden strike, but a gradual awakening. The black hole's gravity begins to knead the star, feeling for the weaknesses in its magnetic and thermal structure. The predator does not need to reach out. Its reach is the very fabric of space itself. The star is being pulled into a regime where the difference in gravitational pull between its leading and trailing edges is greater than the forces holding its atoms together. This is the tidal disruption radius, the perimeter of the predator's killing floor. As the star crosses this threshold, the dormancy of the black hole ends. The monster has found a source of matter within its reach, and the process of consumption begins with a terrifying mathematical precision. The black hole does not eat the star in the way a biological creature consumes food. Instead, it dismantles it. The star is shredded, its 5 billion years of hydrogen and helium reserves turned into a chaotic stream of debris. This is the moment the silent giant begins to scream. The matter, as it is pulled toward the event horizon, is accelerated to significant fractions of the speed of light. Friction and magnetic compression heat the gas to millions of degrees, turning the dark heart of the galaxy into a furnace of X-ray radiation. The dormant giant is now an active engine. The singularity at its centre, though still hidden behind the veil of the event horizon, becomes the focal point for an energy release that will be felt across the entire span of the observable universe. The predator has woken up, and its first meal in an eon will be the catalyst for a light so bright it will render the surrounding galaxy invisible by comparison. The vacuum, once silent and empty, is now filled with the roar of a star being processed into raw energy. The scale paradox is made manifest. A point of zero volume is currently dictating the fate of a sphere of fire 1 million miles wide, and in doing so, it is preparing to launch a message of light that will travel for 8.5 billion years to reach the eyes of a species that has only just begun to look at the stars. The feast has begun, and the universe is about to witness the true efficiency of the abyss. The tidal disruption event, or TDE, is a masterclass in the destructive power of gravitational shear. As the star penetrates the inner sanctum of the black hole's influence, the difference in gravitational acceleration between its leading edge and its trailing edge becomes an irresistible force. This is the moment of spaghettification. The term, though nearly playful in its phonetics, describes a process of absolute nonlinear distortion. The star is no longer allowed to exist as a three-dimensional sphere. Instead, it is forcibly reorganized into a one-dimensional stream of superheated gas. The gravity of the singularity acts like a cosmic pasta machine, pulling the solar mass into a thin, agonizingly long ribbon of plasma that stretches for millions of miles. The internal structure of the star, a complex architecture of nested shells built over 5 billion years, is unraveled in a heartbeat. The outer convective zone, where massive plumes of plasma once churned in a slow, rhythmic cycle, is the first to be flayed. It is stripped away and accelerated toward the event horizon, forming the vanguard of a luminous trail. Then comes the radiative zone, where photons once struggled for millennia to escape the dense interior. Now that matter is liberated and crushed simultaneously, its density skyrocketing as it is funneled into the gravitational throat of the monster. Finally, the core itself, the engine of fusion, is breached. The intense pressure that once sustained the star is replaced by an external pull so great that the very nuclei of the atoms are forced into new, violent trajectories. This transformation turns a solar system's worth of coherent matter into a long, luminous ribbon of plasma. This ribbon is not a static thing. It is a river of fire moving at a significant fraction of the speed of light. As the front of the stream rounds the black hole, it encounters the trailing remnants of its own tail. The resulting collisions are catastrophic. Particles of gas, moving at thousands of miles per second, slam into one another, converting their kinetic energy into raw heat. The temperature of the stream climbs from the mere thousands of degrees of a stellar surface to millions of degrees Kelvin. The ribbon begins to glow with a fierce, ultraviolet intensity, a beacon that signals the star's final dissolution. The black hole, however, is a messy eater. It cannot consume the entirety of the star at once. The laws of angular momentum dictate that the infalling matter must first form a disk, an accretion disk, a swirling whirlpool of plasma that orbits the singularity at relativistic velocities. The ribbon of gas wraps around the black hole, overlapping and colliding with itself, creating a chaotic, superheated environment where magnetic fields are twisted and compressed to extreme densities. This is the formation of the engine. The gravitational potential energy of the star, which was stored for billions of years, is being released all at once as it falls into the gravitational well. The sheer scale of this ribbon is difficult to reconcile with the human experience. It is a structure that spans the distance from a sun to its furthest planets, yet it is only a few thousand miles wide. It is a needle of light piercing the dark, a concentrated stream of ions and electrons that has become the most luminous object in its galaxy. The star's death is not a quiet fading away. It is a loud, bright, and incredibly efficient conversion of mass into energy. The ribbon of plasma is the final testament to the star's existence, a glowing signature written across the vacuum of space. Within this swirling disk, the physics of the extreme takes hold. The magnetic fields dragged along by the ionized gas become so concentrated that they begin to dominate the flow of matter. They act like giant elastic bands, storing energy until they snap and reconnect, launching bursts of radiation that pulse across the electromagnetic spectrum. The black hole is no longer a silent predator. It is the center of a roaring storm of light and heat. The matter that once made up a stable, life-giving sun is now a swirling vortex of destruction, a luminous halo that marks the boundary between the known universe and the infinite dark of the singularity. This is the mechanics of the feast, a systematic dismantling of a world turned into a spectacle of pure radiation that will eventually reach the lenses of a small blue planet billions of light years away. The TDE is the ultimate expression of the scale paradox, where the smallest point in the universe dictates the fate of the largest structures, and where a single star's end becomes a beacon for the entire cosmos. The superheated whirlpool of the accretion disk reaches a point of critical congestion. Despite the bottomless hunger of the singularity, the laws of physics impose a bottleneck on the rate at which matter can be consumed. As the remnants of the shredded star spiral inward, the friction and compression within the disk generate a luminosity so intense that the pressure of the light itself begins to push back against the relentless tug of gravity. This is the Eddington limit, a state of cosmic equilibrium where the outward force of radiation matches the inward pull of the black hole. The black hole, in a very literal sense, begins to choke on the abundance of its own feast. The matter cannot fall in fast enough, and the excess energy must find an escape. As the black hole spins, it drags the very fabric of space-time along with it, a phenomenon known as frame dragging. The magnetic field lines, once part of the star's internal architecture and now amplified by the swirling plasma of the disk, are caught in this rotational fury. They are twisted and braided into a tight helical structure, like a colossal spring being wound to the point of snapping. These magnetic fields act as a funnel, creating a narrow corridor of electromagnetic force that extends outward from the poles of the black hole, perpendicular to the plane of the accretion disk. The congested matter, unable to cross the event horizon due to the intense radiation pressure, is instead diverted into these magnetic tunnels. Suddenly, the tension of the wound-up magnetic fields is released. The black hole launches a pair of narrow, highly collimated beams of matter and radiation into the void. These are the relativistic jets, the most powerful directed energy events in the known universe. A fraction of the star's mass, now reduced to a soup of subatomic particles, is accelerated to 99.99% the speed of light. At this velocity, the physics of the mundane world are abandoned. The particles within the jet gain enormous effective mass and experience the passage of time at a vastly different rate than the universe around them. The jet is a spear of pure energy, a needle of light that pierces through the surrounding galactic gas and screams into the intergalactic vacuum. This jet is not merely a byproduct of the feast, it is a manifestation of the black hole's power to transform matter into motion. The gravitational potential energy of the falling star is converted with near-perfect efficiency into the kinetic energy of the jet. The beam is so tightly focused that it remains coherent over distances that span thousands of light years, carving a path through the darkness with the precision of a celestial laser. It is a lighthouse beam of terrifying proportions, carrying the signature of the star's destruction across the eons. By a stroke of profound cosmic coincidence, one of these jets is aimed with lethal precision toward a specific coordinate in the vastness of the expanding universe. It is not pointed toward the empty reaches of the great voids or the dense anonymous clusters of distant superclusters. Instead, the axis of the black hole's rotation has aligned the jet directly with a small, inconspicuous spiral arm of a galaxy billions of light years away. The beam is headed directly toward our corner of the universe. It is a message of light, travelling at the ultimate speed limit of reality, carrying the news of a solar system's end. As the jet travels through the void, it remains a concentrated pillar of fire. The particles within it are moving so fast that they catch up to the light they emitted moments before, creating a wall of radiation that precedes the jet itself. This is the spearhead of the event, a front of high-energy gamma rays and X-rays that will be the first thing to strike the sensors of any civilization in its path. The jet is a bridge across time, a relativistic link between a dormant monster in the deep past and the inquisitive minds of the future. It traverses the expanding gulf between galaxies, passing through the thin, ionized gas of the intergalactic medium without losing its focus or its fury. The journey of this jet is a testament to the scale paradox, a process occurring at the scale of a single star governed by a singularity no larger than a city, has produced a structure that spans the cosmos. The light from this jet will travel for 8.5 billion years, its wavelength stretched by the expansion of space, its intensity diluted by the vastness of the distance, yet it will remain powerful enough to saturate the most sensitive instruments ever built by human hands. The beam is coming, a silent strobe of blue light that will eventually reveal the secret of the black hole's feast to a species that was not even a biological possibility when the jet was first launched. The spear is in flight, and the vacuum offers no resistance to its relativistic progress. The journey of this luminous spear across the void is governed by the counterintuitive dictates of Einsteinian relativity. As the jet screams through the vacuum at 99.99% the speed of light, it does more than simply move. It transforms the very nature of the radiation it emits. This phenomenon, known as relativistic beaming or Doppler boosting, is the mechanism that allows a distant, localized catastrophe to masquerade as a godlike eruption of energy. Because the jet is pointed with near-perfect precision toward our corner of the universe, the light it produces is subject to a radical geometric amplification. To understand the intensity of AT 2022 CMC, one must look at the compression of the light waves themselves. As the matter within the jet travels at a velocity nearly indistinguishable from the speed of light, it is essentially chasing its own photons. The light emitted by the advancing front of the jet does not have the opportunity to spread out in a traditional spherical fashion. Instead, the waves are bunched up, crushed together by the sheer momentum of the source. This is a blue shift of extreme proportions. The wavelengths of the radiation are shortened, shifting from the lower frequencies of the infrared and visible spectrum into the high-energy, high-frequency regime of the ultraviolet and the X-ray. This compression creates a concentration of energy that defies the standard inverse square law of light. In a typical stellar explosion, the energy is radiated in all directions, dissipating rapidly as it fills the expanding volume of space. But in a relativistic jet pointed directly at the observer, the energy is focused into a narrow, blinding cone. The result is a staggering amplification that makes the event appear 10,000 times more luminous than a standard flare or a typical supernova. The light is not merely bright, it is a concentrated beam of relativistic fury, a cosmic searchlight that cuts through the dust and gas of 8.5 billion light-years of intervening space. This Doppler boosting is the only reason the sensors of the Zwicky Transient Facility were able to register the event at all. Without this relativistic trick of perspective, the scream of the dying star would have reached Earth as a faint, undetectable whisper, a minor fluctuation in the background noise of the deep sky. Instead, the boosting allowed the signal to arrive as a strobe of blue light so powerful it saturated the most sensitive instruments of the 21st century. It provided a window into the state of the universe when it was only 1/3 of its current age, allowing astronomers to peer back to an era when galaxies were younger, more crowded, and more prone to these acts of gravitational cannibalism. The radiation detected by our telescopes was not just intense, it was dense with information. The compressed light waves carried the signature of the extreme temperatures at the heart of the jet, a searing 30,000 Kelvin. This heat is not the result of a simple fire, but of the kinetic energy of billions of tons of matter being slammed together at the limit of what the universe allows. The Doppler boosting acts as a natural telescope, magnifying the details of the black hole's feast and projecting them across the eons. It is a bridge across the scale paradox, taking a process occurring at the event horizon of a distant singularity and making it the most prominent feature of our nightly sky surveys. As this light washed over the Earth in February of 2022, it brought with it the physical reality of a world long since erased. The photons that struck the silicon wafers of our cameras had spent 8.5 billion years in transit, their frequencies preserved by the vacuum but their intensity maintained by the relativistic velocity of their birth. We were not looking at a distant star, we were looking down the barrel of a cosmic cannon. The brilliance we recorded was a product of our alignment, a rare and fortuitous positioning that placed us directly in the path of the jet's spearhead. In this moment, the universe ceased to be a collection of distant, fading lights and became a place of direct, high-energy connection. The Doppler boosting had turned a remote tragedy into a local revelation, proving that even the most distant corners of the dawn of time can reach out and touch the present with the force of 10 billion suns. We are the beneficiaries of a relativistic coincidence, standing in the light of a fire that was concentrated specifically for our eyes by the very laws of motion. The photons embark upon a journey across a gulf that mocks the human understanding of duration. For 8.5 billion years, this pulse of radiation has moved through the vacuum, a silent witness to the evolution of the cosmos. When this light first began its trek, the universe was only 1/3 of its current age, a place of far greater density and more frequent collisions. In that distant epoch, the Milky Way was a fledgling structure, a chaotic collection of gas and young stars that had yet to settle into the grand spiral we recognize today. Our own sun did not exist. The solar system was not even a dream in the heart of a molecular cloud. The atoms that would one day form the mountains, the oceans, and the very marrow of our bones were still scattered across the interstellar medium, forged in the bellies of ancient stars that were yet to explode. The source of this light was a furnace of 30,000 Kelvin, a temperature so extreme it sits at the very edge of the stellar classification system. It is twice as hot as the surface of the most massive blue stars, a searing heat that produces radiation primarily in the ultraviolet spectrum. As these photons fled the site of the tidal disruption, they were blue and energetic, carrying the raw power of the black hole's feast. But as they travelled, they encountered the fundamental reality of an expanding universe. Space itself was stretching beneath them. The very fabric of the void through which they moved was growing, and with it the wavelengths of the light were pulled and elongated. What began as a piercing ultraviolet scream was slowly shifted toward the visible blue, a process of cosmological redshift that serves as a measure of the vast distances crossed. The light crossed the great voids between galaxies, regions of such low density that a single atom might be the only inhabitant of a cubic metre of space. It passed through the halos of dark matter that anchor the galactic clusters, feeling the subtle tug of gravity but never wavering from its relativistic path. For the first 4 billion years of its journey, the light saw a universe of rapid change. It witnessed the peak of star formation, a period where the galaxies were ablaze with the birth of new suns. It passed through the era when the first heavy elements, carbon, nitrogen and oxygen, were being distributed through the cosmos by the deaths of the first generation of giants. By the time the light had completed half of its journey, a small, unremarkable cloud of gas in a distant spiral arm began to collapse. This was the birth of our Sun, an event that occurred 4.5 billion years ago, while the light from IT 2022 CMC was already 4 billion years into its trek. As the light continued its relentless progress, the Earth formed from the debris of the solar nebula. Continents rose and fell. The first microscopic life began to stir in the depths of the primordial oceans. The light was still travelling, crossing the final billions of light years of the intergalactic void, while life on Earth evolved from single cells to complex organisms. The dinosaurs rose to dominance and were subsequently erased by a falling star of a different kind, all while this pulse of radiation was closing the distance to our world. The scale of this journey is the scale of existence itself. We are looking at a signal that has outlasted entire geological eras. It has survived the birth and death of stars and the rise and fall of species. When it finally reached the edge of our galaxy, it passed through the thin gas of the Milky Way's disk, entering the solar system and finally striking the atmosphere of the third planet. The 30,000 Kelvin heat of its origin had been tempered by the expansion of the universe, but its intensity, bolstered by the relativistic jet, remained high enough to be seen across the eons. This light is a bridge between two vastly different universes, the young, violent cosmos of 8.5 billion years ago and the quiet, inquisitive world of the present. It is a reminder that the past is never truly gone. It is merely travelling through the dark, waiting for someone to build the eyes necessary to see it. The data we gathered from this light is more than just a measurement of temperature or distance. It is a chronicle of a lost era. It tells us that the engines of the early universe were capable of an efficiency and a violence that we are only beginning to comprehend. The 30,000 Kelvin signature is a fossil of a moment when gravity and matter were locked in a dance of absolute destruction. As we process this information, we are forced to reckon with the fact that we are the newcomers in a very old and very large story. The light has finished its journey, but for us the journey of understanding is only just beginning. We are the recipients of an 8.5 billion year old message, a strobe of blue light that has travelled through the dawn of time to find us in the quiet of the 21st century. The process of scientific revelation is rarely the result of a single, isolated observation. Instead, it is built upon the comparison of outliers, the slow realization that what once seemed like a glitch is actually the signature of a new reality. IT 2022, CMC is not a solitary phantom in the dark. It is the most extreme member of a newly recognised family of cosmic catastrophes. In the year 2018, another signal had already rattled the foundations of the astronomical community. Known colloquially as the COW, or AT 2018 COW, this event was the first to force a reckoning with the existence of fast blue optical transients. Like its later, more distant cousin, the COW appeared with a suddenness that defied the slow, radioactive rhythms of a standard supernova. It was incredibly hot, incredibly fast, and glowed with a fierce blue light that suggested a central engine of immense power. When astronomers place AT 2022 CMC alongside the COW, a pattern of profound significance emerges. These events reveal a new class of cosmic engine that operates on principles far more efficient than the nuclear fusion that powers the stars. A standard supernova is a thermal event, a release of energy driven by the radioactive decay of heavy elements like nickel-56. It is a brilliant but ultimately inefficient process, where only a tiny fraction of the star's mass is converted into light. In contrast, the transients of the 21st century are engine-driven. They are the result of a central compact object, a black hole or a neutron star, actively consuming matter and converting gravitational potential energy into raw, terrifying radiation. This is the most efficient mechanism for energy production in the known universe. As matter falls toward the event horizon of a black hole, it is accelerated to relativistic speeds, its kinetic energy mounting as it plummets into the gravitational well. Through the friction of the accretion disk and the twisting of magnetic fields, this gravitational potential is converted into light with an efficiency that approaches 40% of the mass energy equivalent. By comparison, the hydrogen fusion that powers our Sun converts less than 1% of its mass into energy. These cosmic engines are the ultimate power plants of the vacuum, turning a solar system's worth of matter into a beam of light with a precision that borders on the absolute. The realization that AT 2022 CMC and the cow are related marks a shift in our understanding of the cosmic cycle. These are not isolated glitches or errors in our sensors. They are a fundamental, albeit rare, part of the way the universe processes matter and energy. They represent the moments when the dormant giants at the hearts of galaxies interact with the stellar populations around them. While a galaxy may appear as a static collection of stars, it is in fact a dynamic ecosystem where the growth of a central black hole is punctuated by these violent feasts. Every few 100,000 years, in every galaxy across the span of the observable universe, a star will wander too close to the center and the engine will ignite. These events are the pulse of the deep. They are the mechanism by which supermassive black holes grow, and the energy they release in these brief, brilliant flashes can influence the evolution of an entire galaxy. The relativistic jets launched during these events can sweep away the gas and dust in their path, quenching star formation and altering the destiny of billions of future suns. By studying AT 2022 CMC, we're not just looking at the death of a single star, we're looking at the metabolism of the universe itself. We are seeing how the most extreme environments in existence recycle the remnants of the past into the light of the future. The Black Swan has thus been integrated into the map of the known. What was once an unpredictable outlier is now the cornerstone of a new branch of astrophysics. We are beginning to understand that the universe possesses a hidden repertoire of high-energy phenomena that we are only now developing the technology to see. The cow and its more powerful successor in 2022 are the first entries in a new catalogue of the extreme. They remind us that the night sky is not a passive tapestry, but a stage for engines of near-perfect efficiency that can bridge the distance of billions of light-years in a single blue-white strobe. We have decoded the scream of the dying star, and in doing so, we have found the heartbeat of the monsters in the dark. The scale paradox remains, but it is no longer a source of confusion. It is a roadmap for the exploration of a universe that is far more active, far more violent, and far more connected than we ever dared to believe. We are the witnesses to these cycles, the chroniclers of a cosmic engine that has been running since the dawn of time. The universe is a cold, indifferent engine of transformation, operating on a scale that renders the concepts of mercy or meaning entirely irrelevant. In the heart of a distant galaxy, a star, a complex incandescent world that might have provided the warmth and light necessary for the birth of an entire biosphere, is processed into a beam of radiation with the clinical efficiency of a machine. There is no mourning for the 5 billion years of history that are erased in a matter of weeks. There is no pause in the cosmic clockwork to acknowledge the destruction of a solar system's worth of potential. Matter is simply reorganized, its gravitational potential harvested and cast into the void as a relativistic jet. This is the reality of the deep, a vast, dark factory where the building blocks of reality are recycled through the throats of singularities, governed by laws that do not account for the fragile structures of life. Against this backdrop of staggering violence and infinite distance, the emergence of biological life appears as a profound anomaly. We are entities composed of carbon, water, and complex electrical impulses, residing on a small rocky planet that occupies a negligible sliver of space and time. Our lives are measured in decades, a duration that is essentially zero when compared to the 8.5 billion years the light of AT 2022 CMC spent travelling toward us. We are physically insignificant, our entire civilization a mere dust mote caught in the light of a fire that started before our world even existed. This is the first half of the scale paradox, the crushing weight of our own smallness in a cosmos that functions through the consumption of suns. Yet, the second half of the paradox reveals a strange and terrifying beauty. Though we are fragile and bound by the briefest of timelines, we have developed the capacity to reach across the eons. We have built mechanical eyes that can capture the ancient red-shifted photons of a dying star. We have devised a language of mathematics and physics that allows us to translate a flicker of blue light into a detailed account of a black hole's feast. We sit in quiet rooms on Palomar Mountain or in offices in California, and we decode the scream of a monster that has been travelling through the vacuum for more than half the age of the universe. We can measure the temperature of 30,000 Kelvin and calculate the velocity of 99.99% the speed of light, bridging the gap between our microscopic existence and the macroscopic fury of the infinite. This is the ultimate expression of the scale paradox. We are the part of the universe that has developed the curiosity to ask why it is so violent. We are the witness, the only known point in the cosmos where the cold machinery of gravity and matter has become aware of itself. The black hole does not know it is consuming a star. The star does not know it is being shredded into a ribbon of plasma. The relativistic jet does not know it is a beacon. Only we, the fragile carbon-based observers, can grant these events a narrative. Only we can feel the existential weight of the 8.5 billion years of silence that preceded the arrival of the signal. Our meaning is not found in our physical stature, which is nothing, but in our ability to measure and understand the infinite, which is everything. The contrast is stark, a universe that can vaporize an entire atmosphere with a strobe of blue light, and a species that can watch that strobe and understand the physics of the singularity that produced it. We exist in a state of perpetual tension, caught between the reality of our inevitable extinction and the brilliance of our intellectual reach. We are the chroniclers of a story that was written in the stars long before we were born, and our role as the witness is the only thing that prevents the universe from being a silent, empty theatre. We have taken the scream of a dying star and turned it into data, into knowledge, and finally into a reflection on our own place in the dark. In the presence of AT 2022 CMC, the scale paradox is no longer a mathematical problem to be solved. It is a spiritual condition to be inhabited. We must reconcile the fact that we are both the dust and the eye that sees the dust. We are the recipients of a message from the dawn of time, a signal that tells us the universe is a place of extremes where the strike of a match can indeed herald the birth of 10 billion suns. We stand on our pebble, looking into the fire of the past, and we realize that while the universe may be indifferent to our existence is the only thing that gives the universe a voice. We are the bridge across the scale paradox, the small thing that contains the understanding of the large thing. In the quiet of the night, as we process the light of a catastrophe from 8.5 billion years ago, we find that our true significance lies not in our survival, but in our refusal to be silenced by the scale of the void. We are the part of the machine that has begun to wonder, and in that wonder the cold engine of the cosmos finds its only spark of warmth. The light that travelled for 8.5 billion years has finally found its destination. It did not end in the cold, unfeeling vacuum, but in the deliberate, focused gaze of a species that has learned to value the flicker of a distant flame. This is the role of the witness. In the vast, indifferent machinery of the cosmos, where galaxies collide and stars are shredded by the gravity of dormant giants, the act of observation is the only thing that confers a sense of history upon the chaos. Without the witness, the eruption of IT 2022 CMC would be a scream in a vacuum where no one can hear. a massive release of energy that leaves no trace upon the consciousness of the universe. But because we have built the eyes to see and the minds to understand, that Scream has become a story, a narrative of power and transformation that bridges the gap between the dawn of time and the present moment. We are forced to accept that our meaning is not a function of our physical size or our duration in the stream of time. If we were to judge our importance by the scale of the events we observe, we would be less than nothing. We are the inhabitants of a single planet, a speck of dust in a galaxy that is itself a speck of dust in the observable universe. Our bodies are fragile, our lives are short, and our civilization is a momentary spark in the dark. Yet we possess a power that the black hole, for all its terrifying gravity, does not. We can measure the infinite. We can look at a point of light and determine the temperature of 30,000 Kelvin. We can calculate the 99.99% speed of light that defines a relativistic jet. We can look back to a time when the universe was only 1/3 of its current age and see the birth of the very atoms that would eventually become us. Our curiosity is the bridge that spans the scale paradox, allowing a fragile carbon-based entity to inhabit the mind of the cosmos. The study of these black swan events, these rare, massive disruptions of the status quo, reminds us that the universe is not a finished work, but a continuous process of transformation. We are part of that process. By decoding the light of a dying star, we are participating in the metabolism of the universe. We are taking the raw, violent energy of the deep past and refining it into the gold of human knowledge. This is our legacy, not the monuments we build on our own world, but the maps we draw of the heavens and the understanding we cultivate of the laws that govern the dark. We are the part of the universe that has woken up, and in our waking, the universe itself begins to understand its own history. The strobe of blue light that saturated the silicon wafers of our cameras in California was not just radiation, it was a message, a testament to the fact that even the most distant and violent corners of existence can be reached by the human intellect. As we stand on the threshold of a new era of discovery, we are reminded that the night sky is full of messages yet to be decoded. Each flicker, each transient, and each scream across the vacuum is an invitation to look closer and think deeper. The story of AT 2022, CMC, is just one chapter in the epic narrative of the cosmos, a narrative that we are privileged to read. This journey into the heart of the scale paradox and the mysteries of the deep would not be possible without the support of those who value the pursuit of knowledge. We extend our deepest gratitude to the patrons who sustain this exploration, providing the resources necessary to translate the complex language of the stars into a story we can all share. Their commitment to the witness ensures that the scream of the dying star does not go unheard, and that the fire of 10 billion suns continues to light the path of our understanding. To continue this journey through the eons, to look deeper into the engines of the extreme and the history of the void, we invite the viewer to join our community. By subscribing to this channel, you become part of the collective witness, a global effort to measure the infinite and find our place within the grand design of the universe. Together, we will continue to look into the blue fire of the past, decoding the secrets of the black swans and exploring the deep history of the universe. The dark is no longer a place of fear, but a frontier of understanding, and the next light to reach our shores may hold the key to the next great revelation. We are the chroniclers of the infinite, the small voices that dare to describe the roar of the stars. Thank you for standing with us as we watch the heavens, for in our watching we ensure that the universe is never truly alone in the dark.